and welcome to the inside of our camper during this beautiful Christmas season on the Simple Ground Homestead. I'm pretty excited to share something with you today that I've been working on. Since we're still stuck in a camper, I've been pretty bummed about not having a normal Christmas. Christmas is a really fun holiday for me, and I love the spirit, and I love the decorations, and I wanted to try something new. So I decided, with all the trees we have around here, why not try making a living wreath? Here's an example of one of the ones that I have done, and it's been a pretty fun project. I took it on myself to make it a challenge to try to use most of it from stuff around our homestead here. So I've spent very little money on it, and it's just been something I've had to put a little bit of time into, and it's been a lot of fun. Now I'm going to show you how I've made it work. Now personally, I kind of like the foliage of the evergreens. I think they make a really fun addition to our frame, something to really grab onto for the wire. So I'll start with fairly long pieces, and as you can tell, the diameter, I kind of want to go smaller than my pinky because they bend well. So if I start with that, and then I like to just alternate kind of between the evergreens and then something else that's got a lot of flex. And I just layer it up about a couple inches up. And to begin with, I'll just stack a few on top of each other, knowing that when I get back around, I'll be tying them. And so I'll start putting wire on about the time I've got the thickness that I want. It doesn't hurt to follow the shapes of some of these sticks too. This one has a natural curve, and it'll bend around with it really well. Okay, I think about right here is where I'm going to do my first wiring. So I just have my floral wire. And I like to give it a double wrap. And then I'll just use my pliers here to pull it a little tighter and give it a couple of turns. And just make sure that the ends of it are pointing down so that you're not poking yourself later. Now that we've got the first bit of wire, every time you add the next bit, it doesn't hurt to just give it a quick bend, just to make sure that we can follow that curve of the wreath. Now when you get part way, just kind of be looking at what shape you're wanting. And you can tell on the ends here that we're getting closer to where I want those to meet. But depending on the size you want, you can kind of get an idea of when this is going to fold around and get the size that you're looking for. And you just want to make sure you're getting the width that you want. So I'll add a few more, and then I'll probably fold that around and add the other side to the first end. So now I'm wrapping it around. But I can feel already that that's probably not gonna have quite enough strength to it. So even though I'm gonna wanna tie this end in, I think I'm gonna add an extra branch just to give it a little more strength. Now so you can kind of see what we have left. You can see how we have the back end here and the front end on this end, and we're having to figure out how to connect the two together. So make sure you're paying attention to both ends as you wire up here. Alright, so there you have the frame for your wreath. At this point you can take a minute and look at it, see if there's anything you don't like. I'm thinking that this side right here might be a little bit too unsupported. You can fix it just by wiring it again, or if you feel like it's just not sturdy enough, like me, I'm gonna add another stick to it, just wire it up. However you want to fix it, it's up to you. This is your wreath and you can decide how sturdy you want it. Just remember, the thicker it is, the stronger it will be. So it doesn't hurt to add extra branches if you're wanting it to be more sturdy. And there you have your homemade wreath frame. So now that we have the wreath frame built, I'm going to show you how to add some of the foliage to fill the wreath out. Now you'll notice that I'm no longer using the floral wire. I'm changing to some of this twine here, this jute twine. And that's partially because I want to try a different style of tying the foliage on, and it's partially because I ran out of floral wire. So there's just different ways you can do it, and you can explore with which way you like to tie the boughs onto your wreath frame. I have found that I like to start with the traditional pine boughs, just the normal pine needle looking pine boughs. And I like to kind of put those in to give it a fuller shape to begin with, and then I add other types in. So it just depends on the look that you want. If you want to do all one kind, that's great. I personally like the variety. I think it turns out really pretty. So what I do is I'll just start by laying out some of the pine boughs here. And if I just lay them out, it'll help me get things started, and then I can start tying it all together. You'll notice that as I do this, I like to tuck the end, the cut end, underneath the other ends, just to hide it to begin with. Gives me a good idea of what it will look like in the end. After I get to about this point, I like to add some of the other types in. You'll notice that I've got all the boughs going in the same direction, just like when I built the frame. You can kind of weave things in as you want. If you want some of the pine over the top, you can just tuck it underneath or over, or however you want to make it work. It's starting to look pretty full at this point, but after I do some tying, it's going to cut back on some of the fullness. So I'm going to take a few pieces of twine and I'm going to tie it down at a few points just so that it's tacked together. Okay, something else to be thinking about while you're doing the tying down. With the circle of the wreath, the boughs like to tip inward. So as you're tying them, make sure you're not letting it tip inward and make sure it's still flowing out this other side, out the outside, in a way that you like. Otherwise you're going to have all your boughs curved in. Now I'm going to take my twine and I'm going to make a guess at how long it needs to be. So I'm going to start by making a little hanger. Just simply tie a knot there, about the size that you want so it'll hang on something. Kind of pick where you want the top. I think I'm going to make this the top of mine. Okay. Now just thinking I'm going to be winding this around this. So I'm going to maybe go about this long. So what you want to do is just wrap this around. Now that I've got that, I'm going to take the twine and I'm going to try to start winding it all the way around. We'll just trim that up with the scissors, fluff out the foliage, kind of line it up where you want so everything's sitting the way you want. It can hide all the strips that you tied it down with, or you can let it show just for decorative purposes. And if you see anything hanging out that you don't like maybe you've got this branch, maybe it's too long for you, you can either trim it up or you can tie it down with an extra piece of string. Whatever you want to do. Now that we're finished, you can tell that I'm by no means a professional, but it's definitely a fun project and it's actually been very therapeutic. I'd love to hear your ideas. Do you have any ideas on how we could do things differently, or something that you would use to decorate with? And as always, thanks for joining us on this journey at Simple Ground.